Iran is staging an attack, waiting for the right moment. They are sending infrastructure and equipment to wage war against Israel and Syria as we speak. And it reminds me of the days when Russia was considering attacking Ukraine, and all of us were wondering, is he really going to invade Ukraine? And we're all wondering, is this going to happen? But I'm here to tell you, everything that Russia and Iran does, it's to prop up their most precious commodity, which is crude. If crude oil is the most important part of your GDP, you are never going to make a move that causes the very thing, the very bloodline, the very source to decline. Everything they're doing is based on oil. Everything BRICS is doing, it's all about oil. It's all about dominance, and it's all about getting this control off their backs. Right now, America has control over every country for the most part. If a country steps out of the bounds of what we think they should not be doing, when I say we, I'm talking about America, all we have to do is sanction them. Their inability to use the SWIFT system, the US dollar, prevents them from buying and selling their commodities. And so they are tired of this control. BRICS is tired of their inability to buy, sell, and trade outside of the US dollar with the fear of being sanctioned at any moment. That's one reason for the BRICS formation. The other reason is they are tired of their barrels of oil being controlled by the stock market, by people in suits, by AI, by large corporations and companies that are woke, that are anti-oil, that use the media to control the narrative. The Western media is controlled and they indoctrinate you. They're not the source of truth. They are an indoctrination machine. They make you believe when to fear and when not to fear. If you recall, during the pandemic, during 2020, when everyone was in fear of their lives, thinking that, oh, if I breathe without something covering my face, or if I'm in contact with the wrong person, if I don't take the you-know-what, I'm going to die. They made you believe this. They made you believe that is much worse than you think. Fast forward to today, if you knew what you know now, then you would have been near as concerned. You would have watched the news and been like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I already knew that was the case. And so that's what they're doing with the wars in the Middle East and with black gold, oil. They are a machine that it's making you believe that oil is evil, that it's causing, it will end the world. It's worse than the cigarette for cancer. It's going to destroy the world. They're getting you to believe. They're putting fear in you to get off oil. You got to ask yourself why. Because there's not enough oil. They're making you believe. Here's the deal. You have these somewhat intelligent people that are seeing the signs. They have access to statistics that you and I do not have. And they say, hey, look, guys, if we keep consuming the amount of oil that we're using, if India and China grow just a small percent compared to America, there's not going to be enough oil. If both China and India use as much oil per person as America does, between the both of them, they will consume more oil than the entire world. About 160 million barrel a day demand, but just between two countries alone, and the total world demand is 104 million. There's not enough oil to share with China and India, let alone the other emerging markets. They see the writing on the wall. If we continue this path, there's not going to be enough oil, and it will cease our way of life. So how do we fix the problem? Well, let's demonize oil and let's prop up green energy. So they put their chess pieces in place. Okay, how can I make money from green energy? Because first off, they have to find a way to make money from it. I mean, wouldn't you, if you could control the narrative and say, hey guys, you got to buy these sprockets, would you not start being the source of these sprockets? See, they not only made you believe, they're fixing the problem with there not being enough oil. Listen, you got to ask yourself, why are we drilling shale? Shale oil and gas didn't start kicking off until 2012. And we went from 6 million a day and grew to 13 million. Why did we go after shale? Well, first off, that question doesn't make any sense to you. Well, Sean, because it's abundant. There's oil. Why wouldn't you produce oil? We need oil, and it's profitable for these oil companies. They're making record profits. That's why. Listen, you don't understand shale. Shale is the most expensive barrel of oil to produce. It's the most complicated barrel of oil to produce. You got to put a massive, over 1 million gallon frac. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of equipment, tremendous amount of fluids. It's a lot of work. It's a lot easier to drill a conventional well, shallow wells. It's much easier. So why are we going after shale when it's the most expensive, most least profitable barrel of oil to produce? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we ran out of conventional oil. We ran out of offshore oil. There's just not enough of it. All the easy to get to oil is gone. So the last ditch effort is shale. And we produced all the easy to get to shale. In relevance, the most easiest shale producers have already been produced. Now we're going after the tier 2 assets. There's not enough oil. That's why we went after shale. And so they've used the media to demonize oil, not because oil is evil, because there's not enough. How do we continue as a country if India and China and the emerging markets, their demand grows to a level to where there's not enough oil for our country? It will bankrupt us. And they saw the writing on the wall. And they see the writing on the wall about shale, about U.S. resources. And so we built this country on cheap, abundant energy. And we're trying to get these other countries to believe, hey, you could build your country on free energy, like green energy. Listen, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Right now, it's too expensive to produce green energy. The technology for cheap, abundant green energy does not exist. It's a fairy tale. It doesn't exist. Well, Sean, what about these wind turbines and all these solar power panels? Listen, it is more expensive because if a solar power panel lasted 100 years and the sun was always shining in the right direction, it would be profitable. Right now, it is cheaper to use natural gas and oil than it is to use green technology. And what you're hearing is not true. And if you own a Tesla, unless you are driving from your home to a grocery store, you see the complications, the infrastructure. It's unbelievable. They have a bunch of diesel-powered charging stations that if you calculate how many miles you get with the Tesla or your electric car, it's equivalent to like 5 miles to the gallon of diesel. It doesn't make any sense. It's a fourth of what you would get if you just have a diesel truck. It's unbelievable. But they think they're saving the country in some way. Well, the reason why is because the media has taken common sense out of your brain and told you what to believe. So they demonized oil because there's not enough. They're making you believe that green energy is the key, which we've spent trillions of dollars on green. Ask the politicians, hey, how much oil have we stopped producing because of the beauty of green energy? How has green energy helped us? Well, they'll give you a cans-fed lie, and then they'll make you. I mean, it's kind of like this whole who's that male-female boxer? She's a female. Doesn't she have an XY chromosome? Yeah, she has both. It's a female. He is born a woman, has a driver's license a woman. It's a woman. Doesn't have an XY chromosome? Yeah, has both. I mean, it's like we've been so brainwashed to be told how to think, we can't even think for ourselves. Somebody that thinks for themselves would be like, okay, if it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's a duck. We can't even see that it's a duck, guys. Listen, I'm here to tell you that the media has controlled the narrative. The war in the Middle East is worse than what you think. Every decision that OPEC, that BRICs, that Russia, Iran, the people in the Middle East, every decision they're making is to push oil prices up. And everything the media is telling you is to push oil prices down. Everything they're doing, because high oil prices erode the precious dollar. At the end of the day, the West is trying to protect power and control and dominance. In the United Nations, in the powers that be, or the ones in the shadows, whatever you want to call it, the deep state, they need the power of America to push the agenda. Whatever this agenda is, whatever you believe about it, they need the power of America. They need the American dominance. They need the force of America. America's losing its grip. And the BRICS Accord, I'm not anti-America. I love my country. I love this country. I love it. I love America. There's no country greater than America. But I'm here to tell you that BRICS isn't playing around. And what they're saying about BRICS, the BRICS GDP is greater than the G7 GDP. For the first time in history, there's a greater GDP than the G7. G7 used to be the most powerful. I mean, America's part of the G7. And BRICS together is more powerful. I don't believe what they're telling you in the news about India. Their GDP is growing. Their demand for oil is growing. China's demand for oil is growing. And China, while everyone else is crying about what's happening in sports and what's happening in our politics with Kamala, and Kamala saying all these things, China is going around cozying up to many countries because all these other countries that normally would do business with America or American allies, they're tired of the woke agenda. They're tired of getting a lecture about how hey, listen, don't use fossil fuels, use green energy, and you guys need to stop disrespecting, homosexuality. And they're pushing this agenda. The very things that Americans get tired of hearing in the news, they're pushing that on other countries. And they're speaking as if it's normal. It's not normal. They're just been indoctrinated by this thing. They're tired of the controls of the West. They're tired of the sanctions. They're tired of what's going on. And there's a major divide right now because many countries, many of these Islamic countries, are calling the 57 Islamic countries to come together, which altogether they have about 30 million barrels of oil to cut Israel off from oil. That's what they're announcing, okay? That's what's public. But what's not being said in the shadows out loud is BRICS is coming together, which BRICS will control over 40% of the world's oil supply, and they're going to cut the West off from oil. They have to, for multiple reasons. Number one, to remove the grip and control of Western sanctions, and number two, to remove the control that they have pricing the commodity. 80% of the world's oil supply is priced by NYMEX and ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, and the New York Stock Exchange. They control 80%. WTI represents 20% of all oil sold, and Brent crude is 60%. Brent is traded on the ICE, and WTI is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And most of those companies are woke. Most of those companies don't drill for oil. Most of those companies know that if oil prices go up, it will erode the very assets that they own. BlackRock is going to do whatever it takes to keep oil prices down for multiple reasons. Number one, they're underneath ESG, which is an anti-oil organization that really believes that oil is the devil, that oil is going to destroy the world. If they don't take action, the world's going to come to an end. They're more worried about oil destroying the world than they are about nuclear weapons. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you don't think Iran and Russia aren't collaborating, if you don't think, Russia has Iranian weapons, drones, drone technology. But if you don't think a Russian superpower that has nuclear technology, the science, the resources of nuclear weapons, if you don't think Iran doesn't have these weapons, you better think again. And Russia is going to do whatever they can to derail America from being able to fund the war in Ukraine. And Ukraine is deep in the heart of Russia right now. How did that happen? Because America has weaponized Ukraine, given them billions and billions of dollars. How can Russia compete with that? They don't have a printing press. They sell oil, and then they use those profits to further their military, to buy more weapons. We're the only country in the world that can just print. We're the only country that can do that, starting in the Vietnam War. That's why we amassed the greatest military in the world. Well, BRICS is tired of not being able to do what America can do. We became a superpower off the backs of Saudi Arabia, buying their oil. We sent them dollars and they sent us oil. We printed oil, literally printed oil. We weren't using our own resources. We were using Saudi Arabia. Well, imagine every single commodity out there, food, grain, fertilizer. We have raped the lands of every other country. We became the world's biggest consumer. And the world is tired of that. The world is tired of every time a barrel of oil is sold in another country, it makes America more powerful. And the very power that they are giving them, they're sanctioning them. I love America. I'm not anti-America, but I'm not for everything that America has done. America has destroyed many countries in the Middle East just so we could further our agenda. We've sanctioned countries and people have starved to death and died. And the Middle East has taken a stand. They hate us, and they're drawing a line in the sand. If you defend Israel, who's destroying our brothers, religion is the most powerful thing. It's more powerful than working for money, working for provisions. They will die for their God. They will strap dynamite to themselves, explosives. They will crash airplanes into buildings. You have no idea what it is to be so dedicated to a religion that you're willing to die, and you're willing to watch your children die for your God. You could disagree with their beliefs. You could disagree with their God, but they will die for their God. And they will defend the Palestinians with their life because those are their brothers. From their religious standpoint, those are their brothers, and they will stand before God and be judged. And they're afraid of not being able to die with their 70 virgins or whatever. They're afraid of burning in hell. They think that if they die for their Palestinian brotherhoods, they truly believe that if they sell oil to Israel, they are disappointing their God. They're afraid of that. So these countries are calling together all of the Islamic Brotherhood to cut Israel off from oil. And I truly believe that the next step is to cut the West off from oil. And here we are depleting our assets from shale. We're just sending our shale oil. We're exporting 6 million barrels of oil a day, and we only produce 13.2. And our demand for U.S. oil is our U.S. oil demand is 20 million. Or I think we're importing 6 million and exporting 4 million. Forgive me, check me on that. But anyways, we are cheaply sending our shale oil out because we do not have the infrastructure to even refine shale oil and gas. We don't have the infrastructure for it because we're not willing to invest in our oil infrastructure because thanks to politics, thanks to Biden and Kamala Harris pushing, if Kamala gets in office, she's going to shut down fracking. So I'm here to tell you, listen, I'm here to tell you guys, if you are a consumer of oil, you're looking at some hard times. But if you are on the other side and you're a producer of oil and you have oil revenue, this is going to be the greatest season of your life because there's not going to be enough oil moving forward, and the green energy isn't going to save you. And the Middle East is getting ready. Iran, they are not going to make the mistake of hyping everyone up about a war. Then all of a sudden, they don't do anything. What do you think is going to happen to oil prices, especially in a potential recession? It's going to cause them to drop. Do you think BRICs, OPEC, Russia, Iran, all those countries are going to allow that to happen? I mean, Russia can't afford for oil prices to drop. That's why Russia is partnering with Iran to stage an attack in Syria. They are going to do whatever they can to keep this hyped up in the news. And the Western media is not reporting everything because they have their marching orders. And their marching orders is, listen, demonize oil, demonize the right, prop up green energy, prop up these beliefs, because any news about oil demand, the Middle East growing, the Middle East tensions growing, the Middle East demand growing, India and China's demand growing, any news about that causes oil prices to go up, and it makes the left look bad. They're trying to win an election here. Now, I'm telling you right now, Iran is being very strategic. They want the West to win. They want the West. They don't want the West to win. They want the left to win. Iran has become very wealthy under the current administration. They're very weak in the Middle East. They want the left to win. They want the left to be empowered. They are weak on Iran. And Iran is not afraid of the powers in office right now. So maybe they're waiting for the right moment. Maybe they're waiting until the election. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's all about the waiting game is causing Israel's economy to fall. Because when you are expecting a strike, you shut down your economy. The fear and the anxiety, that's part of their mind tactics. Maybe they are preparing the staging, prepping. Maybe our fleet that we've sent, America has sent out there, the aircraft carrier has deterred a certain route. Now they have to move things into Syria to stage the attack. I don't know. I don't know why Iran is waiting. But this whole question, like we posed for Russia, I don't think Russia is going to invade Ukraine. Look, I'm here to tell you, every choice that they make, it's about propping oil prices up. And if they don't go to war, oil will not go to the level that they want it to. If they don't formulate BRICs and cut off the West, oil prices will not go where they want it to. Follow the price of oil. Follow the truth about oil. And then you will free your mind from all the lies. Green energy, it's true, but the lie is how good it is. Solar power does produce energy. Wind turbines do produce energy, but it's not as cost effective as you might think. And it cannot replace the most combustible, cheap energy like fossil fuels. I'm here to tell you, oil demand is growing because there are many countries out there that have yet to scratch the surface of demand, and they want to be like America. They're tired of working by the sweat of their brow because energy is the catalyst for growing your country. And these countries are tired of being controlled by the West and being controlled by their ideas, because no country could follow the advice of the West, of America, and thrive. The only way to do it is with cheap, abundant fossil fuels. So if you're interested in investing in oil, there's never been a time to invest in oil. I've got some amazing projects to prep and prepare for what is to come. All right, guys, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.